welcome back to Speducation. I am your host, Brandon Reed, and if this is your first time to the channel, a special welcome to you. Well, we're back from spring break. Hopefully you had a nice, relaxing spring break. That is, if you have kids and you were able to get out and enjoy some of the nice weather. Now, what are we going to be talking about today? Well, we're actually going to be continuing our discussion on what it's like to live with a learning disability. And we've talked about processing, we've talked about strategies for helping students process information. We've also talked about visual, how students see things visually, and how that affects their ability to learn. But today is going to be particularly special. So what are we going to be talking about? Well, check out some of these clips and see if you can figure it out.
Data, huge amounts of it. Now, when we combine this with the data from the amplification of the original signal, we get these encrypted pages of text. Now, no two are alike, and we've uncovered over 10,000 already.
What does it mean, Doctor?
Well, we have no idea. It could be anything.
What about this clip?
All right, people, listen up. The cipher is broken into 3 sections, each with 8 lines and 17 symbols.
No breaks between the symbols, denoting different words. No numbers or clues to substitution keys.
And you got symbols from at least 7 different sources. Greek, Morse code, maybe semaphore, weather symbols, astrological signs.
Well, can you figure out what we're going to be talking about based upon those clips? If you can, great job. If not, that's all right. In both of those clips, the individuals have to decode or decipher what it is the message is trying to tell them. And with students with learning disabilities, that's what they have to do. Whenever they're reading a passage, or whether they're reading a word problem or a long story or instructions on how to complete an assignment, they have to decode what it is that they're reading. And that involves processing, but it also involves some other things too. So that is what we're going to talk about today. So without further ado, let's dive into today's lesson. Today's lesson in What Is It Like to Have a Learning Disability, we're going to be talking about Part 6, Reading and Decoding. Now, when we're talking about decoding, what exactly are we talking about? Well, let me go over that with you. Decoding, as defined by Reading Rockets, is the ability to apply your knowledge of letter-sound relationships, including knowledge of letter patterns, to correctly pronounce written words. Understanding these relationships gives children the ability to recognize familiar words quickly and to figure out words they haven't seen before. So how does this relate to learning disabilities? Well, individuals that have deficits in decoding have trouble understanding how certain words sound, and they have trouble understanding the meaning of those words based upon their process of decoding. So understanding, okay, well, this is a P, so it makes a certain sound. So this means that it relates to this word, okay? But you also have to take in spatial orientation, because spatial orientation also affects decoding as well. Oh, wait, you've never heard of spatial orientation before? Oh, okay. Well, let me explain what that is. Spatial orientation, as defined by Stellar, the STEM Learning and Research Center, is the ability to identify the position of objects in space. It's a strong predictor of math skills and later success in academic achievement. Still confused? Okay, well, check out this clip.
We were taught that this is a what? Watch. This is easy stuff, guys. This is a watch. Okay. This is a watch. What is it now? A watch. How about now? How about now? A watch. In other words, we learn from the time we're born until we're 5 years old that spatial orientation does not dictate object identification. In other words, this is a watch no matter how I hold it. It's not a watch and now it's a can of motor oil and now it's an AM FM radio. It doesn't change because I've moved it. It continues to be a watch.
Did you catch what he was saying in the clip? If you did, then that's good, okay? It didn't matter how he positioned the watch still remains a watch, no matter how he moved it around within the space. It's kind of like this. This is a marker, but I could be very general and say it's a writing utensil, okay? If I have it like this, it's a writing utensil. If I turn it like this, it's a writing utensil. If I turn it like this, it's a writing utensil, okay? It doesn't change what it is. So it's not like he said with the watch, it's a writing utensil, now it's a hot dog, now it's a rocket, now it's a cat, okay? It doesn't do that because it stays the same thing that you're seeing. Now, how does that relate to reading? Well, that's where we get into some mucky ground, okay? Because when you're talking about spatial orientation related to letters, things get a little bit confusing. What do I mean? Well, check out this activity. We're going to look at some letters and see if you can understand the difference between them with spatial orientation and decoding. What is this letter? If you said it's the letter P, you are correct. And what sound does the letter P make? If you said puh, as in popcorn or paw, okay, you are correct. But what is this letter? If you said this is the letter Q, you are correct. Now, here's a tricky question. What sound does the letter Q make? Well, if you said qua, as in quack or quick or quit, then you would be correct. What about this letter? If you said the letter B, you are correct. And what sound does the letter B make? If you said buh, as in ball or baseball or bat or boy, you are correct. What about this letter? If you said it's the letter D, good job. Now, what sound does the D make? If you said duh, as in duck or dog or down, you are correct. Very good. So when we're talking about spatial orientation, and I was using the pen and Mr. Lavoie was using the watch, no matter how you changed it, it's still a watch. It's still a pen, okay? However, when we're talking about letters, it changes up, all right? Because look at this. It's a P. But if I were to flip it, now it's a B. It no longer sounds like puh, it sounds like buh. But now, if I flipped it and reversed it, now it's a Q. It doesn't sound like boy anymore. It sounds like qua, quick, or quit. But if I were to flip it, now it's a D. So it doesn't sound like quick or qua. It sounds like duh, dog, or down, okay? So when we talk about spatial orientation and decoding, individuals with learning disabilities, they get confused by all this because if we change the shape or reverse this letter, now it not only is a different letter, but it has a different sound. And it makes it hard for children to decode what it is that they're looking at. Now we're going to do a little activity. And in this activity, you're going to experience what it's like for a student with a learning disability who has deficits in spatial orientation and decoding. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, on the next page, you're going to see a little sentence. And in this sentence, it's going to be broken up. You're going to have some words on one line, some words on another line. And then you're also going to have some words that start with a D, but it may not look like a D. It may be a P, or it may be a B, or it may be a Q, okay? You have to figure out what it's actually saying. Now, I'm not saying that when you see this, this is what learning disabled students see. They don't see this, okay? They actually see it just like we do, but their brain is processing the information, and how you read it, that is how their brain is processing it. So you're going to experience what it's like. So I'm going to give you some time, okay? And if you want to pause the video and try to figure it out, feel free and go right ahead. But I'm only going to give you about 5 or 10 seconds, and then we're going to ask you some follow-up questions, okay? All right, here it is. Go ahead, take your time, and try to figure out what it's saying. All right. Now, if you need a little bit more time, go ahead and pause the video and then keep trying. And when you're ready, go ahead and hit play and we'll continue. How difficult was that for you to read? Could you even read it? Did you even understand the words? If you were able to read that, a special applause to you, because that's incredible. But if you weren't able to read it, or it took you a little bit longer, now you know what it's like for somebody with a learning disability. Because when they read, even though they may not necessarily see the words on the page like that, that's what their brain is seeing. It's trying to process that information, and it takes them a little bit longer. That's why students with learning disabilities need time, because it takes them a little bit more than the average student. And when we're reading it, our brains don't necessarily see it like that. It doesn't process that information like that. So when a learning disabled student sees this, a student without a learning disability is able to see it as this. The duck waddled down to the water to play with the other ducks, but decided to go for a swim instead. You're probably thinking, oh my God, that's what it was saying? Well, now you know what it's like to have a learning disability. And again, even though we're talking about reading and we're talking about decoding and spatial orientation, it all comes down to processing, okay? How your brain processes the information. That is the difference between somebody that is learning disabled and somebody that isn't, okay? It doesn't mean that they can't learn. They can. It just takes them a little bit longer, and it means that they need a little extra support. But they'll be able to pick it up as soon as we figure out the best way to help them. And what are some of those best ways to help them? Well, that's actually what we're going to be talking about next week. Next week's lesson in What is it like to have a learning disability? We're going to look at part 7, strategies for reading and decoding. And if you liked what you saw, or you learned something new, or you found today's lesson a little interesting, please go ahead and click the like button. And if you want updates on future videos, feel free to click the subscribe button and ring the bell for updates on future videos. And as always, if you really like the video and you have questions, follow-up questions to it, or you have comments, then please share those in the comments section. I'd love to hear from you. And if you would like me to respond, I'll be happy to do that as well. And if you know somebody that might benefit from this channel, please share it with them, because the more information that I can get out, the more people that I can help. And until next time, class dismissed.